So good evening. I'd like to call this meeting to order, and if you will please silence your cell phones, stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance, and then remain standing while Councilman Culleton gives the invocation.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Most loving God, we ask you to be with us tonight as we make decisions for the citizens of the town of Paradise. We ask that you protect all of our first responders and guide us as we make these decisions and help bring about some peace in the world. Amen.
Okay. Dina, roll call.
Roll call. Vice Mayor Bolin?
Here.
Councilmember Culleton?
Here.
Councilmember Jones?
Here.
Councilmember Tryon?
Here.
And Mayor Crowder.
Here.
Thank you.
Okay. 1E, campfire recovery updates. Written reports are included in the agenda. Colette on advocacy, economic recovery and development communications, and emergency operations. Any questions for Colette?
I think I know what you're going to say, Councilmember Tryon. Is there anything you'd like to add? But I think you have a question about the reimbursement request that we have pending with Calaveras and FEMA regarding category. There we go. You have a question regarding the request for reimbursement that we have through FEMA and CalOES for the Category 3 tree removal program, which was also known as the private program and the government tree removal program. So to answer that question, this is an ongoing item that we have been working on every day. And I can let you know we met with CalOES yesterday, had a good discussion about this item, and we are now on another step in this process where we are actually submitting our final letter with additional documentation to CalOES. They will then send that along to FEMA with their recommended support. So at this point, we are waiting again, but we have done the submission that we needed to do at this point. So we remain hopeful. We feel that we're on a great path for this reimbursement, and so we are going to continue pushing every single day. Okay, thank you for the update. You're welcome.
Any other questions for Colette? Any cards, Dina?
I have no cards on this item.
Okay. Mark Maddox, infrastructure and sewer update. Any questions for Mark?
I have one. Mark, are we on schedule for the release of the environmental document on Thursday?
Yes, we are. We're really excited to announce that the EIR is set. We have the printed copies here at Town Hall, and those are going to be distributed to, I believe, 6 or 7 locations throughout the county, both in Chico and Paradise. Our website is set to be updated. We have news releases and media releases ready to go out, social media posts about our 45-day comment period for the draft environmental impact report for the Paradise Sewer Project coming out on Thursday.
Thank you. That's great news.
Yeah, big week.
Any other questions for Mark? Cards, Dina?
No cards on this item.
Thank you, Mark.
Thank you.
Tony Lindsay on code enforcement update. Any questions for Tony? Any cards, Dina?
No cards.
Okay. Kate Anderson on business and housing update. Any questions for Kate?
No cards.
Cards? No?
No cards.
Okay. Item 2, consent calendar. Consent are considered to be routine business that does not call for discussion. Any motion on consent?
I'll move approval.
Second.
Motion by Jones, seconded by Bolin. Roll call vote. Vice Mayor Bolin?
Aye.
Councilmember Culleton?
Aye.
Councilmember Jones?
Aye.
Councilmember Tryon?
Aye.
And Mayor Crowder.
Aye.
Thank you.
Item 4, public communication. Any cards, Tina?
I do have cards on this item. The first one is from Sean Shingler.
Hello, Mayor Crowder and council members. My name is Sean Shingler. Most of you know that I am a contractor here in town. Full disclosure, both Councilmember Bolin and I are business partners. I live on Mountain View Drive. Just got done rebuilding my home 6 months ago, moved in and absolutely love it. Love this town and community. However, apparently right now, dirt is the new gold in paradise, if you don't know. Currently, right now, I have a home on Mountain View Drive that just around the corner is a piece of property that's being excavated for about 27,448 yards of dirt. Now, he did pull a permit, the homeowner did, but it's 3 acres. And if you equate that to 10 to 15 yards of dirt per truck, that's roughly 2,300 trucks. At $275 a load, that comes out to over $600,000. So this piece of property was purchased in May of 2019, and it currently is on the market to sell right now. So my question for you, council, is this. Council and staff, are you okay with this type of activity in this town? So where developers, builders, contractors purchase land with no intent to build on it, but to mine the dirt off of it, export it, and then sell the property for profit, essentially. I don't believe that's any of your intents. I know that wouldn't be mine. Second item is the amount of volume of dirt that's being hauled out of there, the 2,300 trucks that I talked about. That is coming onto both Mountain View Drive and Stark Lane. Both of those, if you haven't driven on them before, they're very small pieces of property. I actually have some pictures here of the destruction that's actually happening. So I understand this gentleman came and got a permit. That amount of yardage to be able to be hauled out of 3 acres is pretty surprising to me, but there are parents with kids that the parents will not allow their kids to ride bikes at all on the streets because of this amount of volume of trucks coming down. There are family members and just elderly folks that cannot walk on the road as well too, that they're afraid to because of that amount of volume. On Saturday, there was 34 trucks coming in, 34 trucks going out, and you can imagine that kind of volume. Their permit says only 12. I've talked to a town member, staff, I should say, and they've had a conversation with the gentleman, but my question is, in the town overall, is this what you're looking for? If you live in paradise, you understand what we're going through. You do. But you don't want it in your neighborhood.
Time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I have a couple questions, if it's okay with everyone. Is that okay? Or no?
Yeah.
Questions or?
No, she,
No, you said no.
I didn't say anything, but we were not supposed to respond.
We can't take
Can we-
action, but we can ask questions.
You can
Okay.
certainly ask questions if you want
Yes.
to clarify some information.
Thank you. So this person pulled a permit, from what I understand, to take dirt out. And is that the sole specific purpose of that permit? Is that your understanding?
Correct, yes.
So it's not that they're leveling land to build or anything like that? They're just basically, as you put, mining dirt?
So the permit does state for a single-family home. I think my point is that it was purchased in May of 2019, and then the permit was issued to be able to mine the dirt out, and then you have now, here we are, 2022, July, and the property's up for sale. Now, it's been up for sale for quite some time. But, and the owner of the property is a developer builder here in town as well too, but wouldn't you be building a single-family home on that parcel?
So the numbers that you gave us about the amount of dirt that's going out, where did you get those numbers?
On the permit.
It's actually on the permit that he's taking that much dirt out? Okay. Thank you.
Did it?
Wait a minute, Sean, I got one question. When we issue a permit, when you do excavation of land for whatever purpose, after there's a number, right? When you're gonna move so many yards of dirt, you have to get a permit. So if I'm only gonna use a yard of dirt, I don't need a permit. But if I'm gonna remove 20 yards of dirt, or whatever the number is, but that's what generates the need for a permit. And then I didn't know whether that, what do they call that, excavation, whatever that kind of permit
Grading
is.
permit, yeah.
Huh?
A grading permit.
Yeah, a grading permit. So I don't know, I'm not familiar with our permit process, so I don't know whether or not you have to have a valid reason to be able to grade the dirt. Because I thought your question to the staff and us is a valid one, but, you know, we're not a rock quarry. We don't want our town to become that, or a
Thank you.
dirt mine.
Thank you. Yeah.
You know, so, but I know that the permits are issued for grading when you're gonna have to do some grading.
So you could ask staff, you know, exactly the trigger points. I do know at 49 yards or less, you don't have to have that grading permit, but anything over that
Right,
you do.
okay.
And they complied with that, they got the grading permit, but 27,448 yards is what's on the, it's 2,300 trucks. That's a lot.
Well, and I know, in addition to that, and maybe this is another avenue to pursue, I know we have, like, when trucks coming into town, there's some kind of they have to pay a fee when there's certain weight limits and things. And so I don't know if our roadways, Mark Maddox would know this better, like Stark Lane or some of these private roads, or even the town roads, whether there's any weight restrictions on the roads. I mean, that's something that, if we haven't been doing that, maybe we should look at. I know a big, heavy truck, overweight vehicle pays a fee to drive through our town roads.
Sure.
So we might want to look at something like that.
And I would appreciate that. I would say that Mr. Gowan here has done a tremendous job in our roads, Stark Lane and Mountain View, as well as Center Pine that connect to Stark Lane. A great job in basically taking photos from, you know, especially right after the fire, all the way to current right now, and you can see the progression of how worse it's got.
So what is this individual doing about erosion control then?
You'll have to talk to staff about that.
Got it. Okay,
That is
thanks.
a part of the permit process. You'd have to talk to them.
Yeah, council members, I will tell you, I have been looking at this issue. I was notified of it last week, and I'm looking at this issue I'm looking at it from all angles. I actually went out and I drove the property today, just right before the meeting. I went out and I drove all the way around it. I drove Stark Lane, Mountain View, and I went down the private road that my car was probably not designed to go down, but I did anyway.
Billy extension, right?
Yep, the Billy Road extension. I did contact one of the individuals here by phone, I tried to make contact by phone today. We have made it an appointment for tomorrow to talk on the phone. This is an issue that we're going to be looking at.
Can we at some point, if we deem that this kind of an issue, so we stop any further, can we take emergency action at a future meeting or something?
We will be looking at this from all angles, including some ordinance changes potentially. The short answer is yes, we can, but we're looking at it from all angles. I don't want to say too much in open session without having done a lot of research, without having talked to them, and
But we can't, the answer to my question is, if after research and after fully flushing this thing out, if we deem it necessary, we could take some emergency action to correct, stop, or whatever, at least
Sure.
prevent it from happening in the future.
sure.
Okay.
I appreciate that, and please understand, this is more than just Mountain View Drive. Okay, this is the town of Paradise.
Yeah.
If this activity continues, developers will come up, start buying property,
Sure.
and this type of thing will happen.
So I don't live on Mountain View, I live on off of Billy Extension. And this, just so you guys know, this isn't the first piece of property this has happened on. This is happened multiple times. And what's interesting too, as you're looking through this situation and doing your research, in Paradise we're unique. When we take out dirt from a property, you've kind of messed up your leach field area. You can't take dirt out and then put a leach field in there because it doesn't work. It has to have some natural grade to it. So, you know, even though the property's up for sale, someone that doesn't understand that might buy the piece of property, but you're gonna have a very tough time getting a leach field in there, yeah. And most people don't understand that, they don't see that. Years ago, it used to be trees. The people come in here and they take all the trees. I remember that. If you were here long enough, you remember that. And we did something to stop that because we didn't want our trees all taken out of town. There was 2 or 3 lots that were just clear cutted for because there was value to them. Now it's something different. So anyway, just wanted to.
Thank you.
Thanks, Sean.
Can I
Thank
have
you.
a question? Because PG&E is supposed to be getting dirt out. Is that stalled again? Is that not moving like it's supposed to?
It is, they're getting it out, but they go from, they had a commitment that houses being built would have dirt first. In other words, if you had a permit and you're ready to build, they were gonna do that. Then they stopped that program, then they put that program back in, they stopped the program. I just talked to them just last Wednesday. Tony had an event over at the Brick, and I said, so are we in or out with that? And they didn't answer that. It's so, the dirt program is so messed up.
Yeah.
And they can't even answer any questions on that, which is sad.
Because when I was driving through town the other day, there was one lot that I saw that just had like a bunch of dirt on it. Like,
Yeah.
that was just hauled in.
Yeah.
And it's just sitting there. It's been sitting there for some time.
And that's the issue, is we're saying, you know, we understand people want dirt on their properties, but if they're not building, get it to the ones that are building. Let's get the houses up that are moving, and that's not happening. So, anyway, I wouldn't want to be in their shoes, but I don't like what's going on.
Is there anything as a council that we can do with PG&E? I mean, it's their dirt that they dug up, but is there anything that?
I don't have anything ready-made that I can point to at this point. I'll take a look and I'll do some research to see if there's something we can do beyond political pressure. That's, my wheelhouse is after political pressure ends. So I'll take a look and see, you always have political pressure available, but I'll take a look and see if you have any other tools in your toolbox.
So just so you know, the only option that a lot of contractors and people have is coming from Chico. Well, you can imagine the cost of that. It's expensive to bring that dirt up, but there's no option. So that's what makes the black market so good. I'm gonna call it a black market. It's what makes the market so good for dirt, is there is a high cost of getting it up the hill, so.
Thank you. Other cards, Dina?
Yes, my next card is from Rich Gowans.
Now that Sean has mentioned my name, I guess I have to talk to you. Rich Goins, 1821 Stark Lane. Been a resident for 30 years in this beautiful community, in the process of rebuilding and helping hundreds of other people get through the process, especially on private roads. I'm going to sort of go off my notes real quickly because Sean did such a good job of indicating the impact on our families. We have really been blessed on Stark Lane, Mountain View, and also Center Pine, and also other private roads throughout the community. I think I visited probably everyone in your community because I've been a private road advocate and been involved in trying to get the information out for the rights and responsibilities of private road owners and residents, as well as just seeing the conditions of our roads and how they're doing, and how we can complement what you guys are doing with private roads. I gotta admit though, private roads is hard to see on your agenda as well as anybody else's agenda with the private road owners and residents. So much comment has been made and shared with me anonymously that we really don't count, it's not important, we're on our own, no matter what happens. And that comes into play with the project that Sean and I are talking about, the Blenton dirt removal project, which incidentally in 95% of the cases is referred to on Billy Road, not the Mountain View Road, as indicated in some of the dialogue. Woody, great question. Nobody has looked at the impact on private roads. We have went from a low six-figure estimate on repairs to over 4 times the amount of repair costs on Stark Lane, or Mountain View alone. Not only because of the debris removal, I've worked with OES to try to deal with get something going, but also PGS, loggers, trees removals, and everything else. And then all of a sudden, and the families are getting adjusted to the calm and the rebuilding of Stark Lane, and then all of a sudden this project hits them. And it hit them right between the eyes, because they know that, and even the town has told us emphatically in public views, that we're responsible under the California Civil Code, 845, it's famous, with everybody. But also, if we don't have insurance, technically, we're on our own. And that's what's coming into play here. There's no accountability for this project and the impact they're having on our road at this point. Not only emotionally, but physically, but also economically. And it's one of the reasons why people are hesitant not only to come out of their homes, and 45% of our total residents and properties are active at this point. But it's also a factor in them rebuilding and wanting to come back because they see the conditions of Stark Lane, Mountain View, and Center Pine. It's been a real issue. But anyway, compliance, very quickly. Thank you with Kevin and Scott. This project is out of compliance with not only the Superior Court judgment, but also your permits, and it's been allowed. Yeah.
We got it.
Okay. Okay.
Mr. Mayor,
Any
could I
questions?
actually just one request?
Yeah.
Can I get a copy of that judgment? Because it's not available online.
Oh, yeah, we got several copies of it.
Yeah, I'd
Yeah.
like, if you can either hand it to me or email it, I'll get it
Yeah,
scanned.
and
And
it's important because you guys are addressed in there in terms of compliance and working with us, and all the conditions of the judgment itself,
Thank you.
especially with the damage going on. I'll be glad to give you another.
Yeah, I'd like a
Yeah.
copy.
Any other questions? So I might share something else about that. We're really concerned about what's going on. Yeah. Thank you. Okay.
Thank you.
My last card is from Ward Habriel.
Good evening, council. Thank you for your time here. First, thank you to those who supported and staff that supported the Paradise Garden Club annual tour. We're going to do it again next year, hopefully 6 properties and another plant sale. We cleared $3,200, which we're a little surprised with for a one-day tour. That helps meet all of our expenses and provide scholarships to students at Butte College in the Environmental Horticulture program. Also, Mr. Mayor, I saw your interview with Haley. Well done. That's no 8-second power talk. That was well done. Several locations. That's the kind of information that really needs to go around. Not everybody watches TV 12 News, but I do. But there's another source of news around. PID does this with every water bill. You get a flyer from them. NRWS, every 3 months, you get a flyer from them. PG&E, they send out a flyer too. For the people that read stuff in print, these are very important and very newsworthy. I'm guessing over half the people open their PG&E bill, the flyer gets tossed. They pay the bill, and that's the end of that. But for the people that get these and read them and are interested in what's going on in our community, I think the town misses a point by not having some kind of a publication periodically that says, hey, guess what good we're doing? Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Ward.
That was my last card.
So item 5, public hearing. This is,
It's me.
this is Kevin. presenting.
Yes. So Susan was not able to join us today, so I was going to handle the public hearing for a consideration for a resolution to formally name a private access easement off of Pince Road in the town of Paradise to Papa Nana Lane. Any questions? So what we need to do is open a public hearing to solicit comments.
Any questions from council? Okay. So at 6:25, we will open public comment. Dina, any cards?
I have no cards on this item.
Okay, at 6:25, we will close public comment. And any,
I move approval. That's exciting.
Second.
Go ahead.
Go ahead, Woody.
Second.
Motion by Bolin, seconded by Culleton to adopt resolution number 2022-46. Roll call vote, Vice Mayor Bolin.
Aye.
Councilmember Culleton.
Aye.
Councilmember Jones.
Aye.
Councilmember Tryon.
Aye.
And Mayor Crowder.
aye.
Thank you.
Item 6A, consider adopting the following resolutions related to the town budget. Ross? And we are taking these individually, correct?
I think all together.
Put them all at once.
That was a Dina question.
You can do them all at once after the presentation is complete.
Okay.
All right, great. So good evening, council. I'll be providing an update on the fiscal year 2022 and 2023 operating capital budgets. Just as a reminder, the full draft budgets were presented in detail for informational purposes only during the special town council meeting that was held on June 29th. So this evening, we'll just be providing kind of a high-level update of just one sort of minor change that was included since that draft budget, and then presenting the final budget for formal adoption this evening. All right, so just a quick look at what we'll be covering this evening. Again, just a review of the budget update from the June 29th meeting. We'll look at the implications of that change on the general fund, the fiscal sustainability model, and then a quick review of the resolutions that'll be covered for formal adoption.
I think you're getting overridden. I might be wrong there.
Sorry.
No worries.
I'm trying to stop this. Subtitles.
All right. There we go. All right, so as just mentioned, there was really only one update from the previous draft of the budget document, which was related to the gas tax revenues. So if you recall from the June 29th meeting, the town had originally anticipated a significant reduction in the amount of gas tax revenues that were to be received over this next fiscal year. And this was a result of the decrease in the population in the town following the census data being implemented post-Camp Fire. So these reductions in the gas tax revenues were included in the draft budget document that was presented on June 29th. However, since that document was published, we actually received some great news that the town was made aware of California state budget allocation that made available $9.3 million to the town through Senate Bill 178 to backfill gas tax revenues over the next 10 years. So what this means essentially is that total amount that was allocated through SB 78 was actually updated into this next draft that's presented before you in the agenda packet, which again represents the amount of gas tax revenue that was expected to be lost over the next 10 years. So we'll see kind of step by step each on the general fund and fiscal sustainability model here in the next few slides, kind of what that means. So we'll go ahead and start out here. This is just a sort of high-level overview of the total general fund operating revenues and expenditures for the next fiscal year. So the operating revenues remain unchanged, essentially for the total operating revenues, Measure V revenues, and other fund transfers from the information that was presented during the June 29th meeting. However, there was one important change here, which was the reduction in the amount transferred from the PG&E settlement fund. So this is a reduction from the previous draft of $11.3 million to the current draft before you of $10.9 million. So a reduction in that transfer amount that we're expecting of about $363,000. So kind of really actually good news, and we'll kind of see the implications of that on long-term fiscal sustainability here in the next slide. And actually, before we do, we'll just take one other sort of high-level look just at the general fund reserves. So again, the general fund reserves outside of the PG&E fund settlement balance is expected to be unchanged since the information presented at the last meeting. However, that assigned PG&E settlement fund balance there of $204,852,000 is actually greater by $363,000, the amount previously presented, based on the reduction in that transfer amount that we're budgeting this next year. So what this means for the town's fiscal sustainability. This slide here includes really the two key outputs of the town's long-term fiscal sustainability model, which shows the transfer amounts expected by year in the top chart in gray, as well as the year-by-year expected total fund balance in the bottom chart in yellow there. So the top chart in gray is just a visual representation of the reduction in that expected transfer from the PG&E settlement fund balance, again, of the original amount of $11.3 million to the amount that's included in the current draft of $10.9 million. So great news to see that we're actually requiring less to be transferred over this next fiscal year. And then really where the big change is shown is in the bottom chart here in yellow, which again shows the total fund balance over the next 25 years projected through the fiscal sustainability model. So if you recall from the June 29th meeting, the version of the fiscal sustainability model presented over the next 25 years was projected to be $55 million. However, with the additional $9.3 million allocated through SB 178, you can see here that the total projected fund balance at the end of the next 25 years is now expected to be $64.4 million. So this is really just a great sign that we're on track to maintain fiscal sustainability over the next 25 years. This next slide here really just provides a sort of drill down into the activity that we're projecting within the PG&E settlement fund, specifically over this next budget year. So again, as presented at the June 29th meeting, the expected beginning fund balance, which is shown in that second column from the right there, is $214,821,000. As shown previously in the last couple slides, the expected transfer out of the PG&E settlement funds is budgeted to be reduced from $11.3 million to $10.98 million. This will be offset from a projected revenues for interest earnings on that fund, conservatively estimated at $1.1 million for the coming fiscal year, for a total projected ending fund balance of $204,852,000. So that really covers sort of the high-level overviews of the changes in the budget from the June 29th meeting. At this point, we will be requesting adoption of the proposed budget, which is included in the following resolutions included in the packet, which is final budget adoption as presented at the June 29th meeting, incorporating the updates that we just covered this evening. The appropriations limit is included in the draft 2022-23 budget document included in your packet. The general fund reserves, which were amended from the June 29th meeting, and the capital improvement plan and disaster recovery plan, which has remained unchanged since the June 29th meeting, as well as the new job classifications and salary pay plan, which again is unchanged since the June 29th meeting. So with that, I'll go ahead and open it up to any questions, if any.
Any questions for Ross?
As well as you did between last time and this time, if we wait longer, we can find out.
Good try.
Dina, any cards?
No cards.
What's our resolution number, 22?
It would be 2022-47 through 2022-52.
Do I have a motion?
Motion, we adopt the budget, resolutions 2022-47 through 2022-52.
Yes.
Second.
Motion by Bolin, seconded by Culleton, to approve resolutions 2022-47 through 2022-52. Roll call vote, Vice Mayor Bolin.
Aye.
Councilmember Culleton.
Aye.
Councilmember Jones.
Aye.
Councilmember Tryon.
Aye.
And Mayor Crowder.
Aye.
And that was a lot of work, thank you.
Yeah, good job.
Thank you.
Thanks, Ross. So item 6B on the agenda was put on in error. We've already voted on it twice, so that's going to be removed tonight. We're going to move on to 6C, and that's considering concurring with staff's recommendation of HQE Systems of Temecula for the design of our early warning systems. Colette?
All right. Thank you, Louise, for showing me how to turn off the subtitles. Thank you. Good night. Good evening, everyone. Good night. Good night. Good evening, Mayor and Council. Thank you for your time this evening to talk about something I am extremely excited to share with you, and I know is a huge milestone in recovery for all of us, and that is the construction contract for the early warning system. So we'll get right into this and talk about, of course, the timeline and how we got to this point. As you recall, right after the campfire, we undertook a lot of community outreach to gain input on how we should move through recovery with such a huge scope of recovery ahead of us. And one of the top priorities in that process was an early warning system to keep our residents safe in the future and future disasters. And so with that information, the town submitted an application to FEMA for hazard mitigation grant funding to put in an early warning system. We had a partial award for a design and scoping plan that was awarded in mid-2020. We used that design and scoping plan to submit another HMGP application in April of 2021, this time for construction funding. And of course, as you know, those funds were finally awarded to the town in April of 2022. We immediately turned around and issued an RFP for a contractor to start work on this important project. And so just kind of briefly, the project description of what this is going to be like. There are 21 steel early warning siren towers at locations throughout town. These speakers will be redundant, not dependent on existing power and communications infrastructure. These are all things that were very important that we learned, of course, through the campfire. As well, having battery backup, AC, solar, cloud-based software, and rely not only on local power or cell towers, but also satellite. Also, we included the option for a live camera feed specifically to help with traffic in emergencies. And so the request for proposal process, as of June 2nd, that was the date proposals were due, this town staff received 5 proposals from Acoustic Technology, Inc., or ATI, Genesis, Inc., who you may recall did our design and scoping plan, Federal Signal, Alertus, Inc., and HQE Systems. An independent evaluation team reviewed and scored the proposals according to the criteria that we had established in our own RFP, as well as FEMA guidelines. So after interviews were conducted with the top 2 submitters, after the first round, HQE was selected as the recommended consultant. The financial impact of this project, the total project cost for the early warning system is $2.675 million with a 5% contingency buffer. Because this is a FEMA hazard mitigation grant, they will cover 75% of that cost with a required 25% local match. Town staff is identifying CDBG DR funds as the most likely source for that match, or town general fund if those funds are not available. However, we do continue to pursue additional grant funds that may be available to cover that 25% match. So what comes now? So after tonight, if this contract is awarded, preliminary construction will start this fall. And then the actual tower installation will take place in February and March of 2023. April, we will be doing training for our staff and those who will be running the system, as well as testing of the system. In May 2023, we anticipate that this will be handed over to the town completely, and this will be fully operational for fire season of 2023. And I do want to note, this is kind of the late schedule. We are doing everything we can to expedite this sooner than this, but this is the latest possible that this would be happening. And so I want to take a minute to say thank you to you, council, to our residents, and to all of the many individuals and organizations who took part in this long process to get us to this point. This is such an important step for our community, for our safety, for our mental well-being, knowing this is here. And there have been so many people who have touched this project and made this happen that I would just want to say thank you. This has been a huge lift to this point, and we couldn't have been here without all of these people listed here who worked so very hard over the last 3.5 years to get to this point. So thank you. Thank you to Town Council for directing this and making this your top priority and really pushing to make sure Cal OES and FEMA understood the importance of this project and getting it funded to this point. So thank you.
I don't see your name on there.
Well,
Thank you, Colette.
thank you. I'm just here at the end.
I have a question.
Yes, perfect timing. Yes,
How
question.
tall are the towers?
Oh, that's a great question. I don't know that off the top of my head. Brian Selecki, if you're here, do you know that off the top of your head?
I don't have the exact number off the top of my head, but I think it's 42 feet, I want to say.
22 feet?
42.
42?
42 or 22?
42 or
42.
Okay,
42.
and the reason I asked that is because I know when cell towers started going up, there are some that are just plain raw steel towers that are aesthetically offensive, to me at least. And then some have been decorated to look like trees or whatever. I'm just curious, are these things going to just be a big ugly pole with a bunch of horns on it, or are we going to make them look pretty?
These are the Core 10 steel, which means that's like the brown,
Whoopee.
color, so doesn't look just like a.
But it's just going to be a steel
It's just
structure.
going to be a steel tower, yeah.
That's true.
That's the only options we have, huh?
As of now, yes.
And the look of it, the picture that's on the screen, that is directly from HQE's proposal. So that is what they'll look like at the top.
Is there a bleed over onto, I mean, you got Magalia just above us, you got Pence Road, you got Wayland, below Wayland. Is there a bleed over into those areas that are really close and right up to our boundaries?
So this is a map. So there was a lot of analysis done on audiology of how the sound will travel and where the sound will reach to make sure that every part of town can be reached by these tones and voice commands as well. And so this kind of shows the decibel levels. I'm not an expert in this science, but these folks are. And you can see that, obviously the farther away you get from these towers, there still will be audible sound, but it lessens over time. So I can't answer that very specifically, but I would believe there will be some of that. I also want to mention, because I think it's important that, and we get a lot of questions about Magalia and how, what are their plans? Does this, can this extend there? I want to be really clear, this funding is just for the town of Paradise, so we are installing this in the town of Paradise. However, we are very supportive of Butte County and their efforts to have an emergency early warning system in their community as well. And so our intention is if and when that is installed, that this would integrate with that system as well. So it would talk to each other and be integrated.
Right, that'd be great. We all consider people right on the fringes of Paradise people. I mean, they're part of us. And it's hard with this picture, I've seen this before, but it's hard to tell where the roads are and where everything's at. But, I would think it would bleed out at least somewhat so that people are not caught off guard just outside the footprint of Paradise, so, thank you.
It would make sense to me, okay, if there was an alert, right, if there's like the fire, they're going to turn them all on, right?
So, go ahead.
Not necessarily. So these you could use these on independently.
Well, I understand you could, but if you have a fire like the campfire happened.
Well, yeah, if it's the campfire, yes, we would turn them all on.
You'd turn them all on.
But if there's a fire up here and we just want to evacuate one area, then that's where we would focus.
Okay, and then back to my original question. Was that not even ever a consideration in the design of this thing? Like the aesthetic value of these things, of what they would look like? Was there no other options to be considered? I'm just curious,
So I personally was not part of the initial application for this, for the system, but I don't believe that was a specification.
We
So we didn't
really
even
just
ask.
wanted
We
function and
didn't
safety.
ask.
Those were our top
I mean, do
priorities.
other communities have them decorated like trees, or they paint them so they look
I
like
have
artwork
not
or
seen
something? Or is
that,
it
but
just
Yeah.
an
I haven't
ugly
looked for it
brown
either.
Tower. Okay, just.
I think the majority of all the other towns do not have decorative trees, but there was aesthetics that were included, which are that kind of dulled kind of metal, because it doesn't look like a bright colored tower, but that was the aesthetic approach to this, knowing that the main focus is to have a early warning system for it.
And again, I mean, it's about, the trees are gone, so we get to look at what everything is around us, you know? And like, so you're gonna have this brown tower with these horns on it that kind of look like that picture, and then you're gonna have a cyclone fence around it, and then you're gonna have a generator sitting there or something, correct? So this is a thing we're gonna look at in all of these different locations. I'm asking that in the most positive tone I can.
I hear your positivity. And I don't think that there'll be like a cyclone fence with razor blades on there and generators. I think that everything will be fairly compact, yes.
Okay.
And I'm not so sure that we would get grants based on the extra cost of decorative. I understand what you're saying. I'm not against what you're saying. I'm just saying,
Yeah.
they could have carved that out and says, well, we're only paying for the pole. You want decorative, you pay for that yourself, and now we're out the money, so.
And Christmas lights on them.
Well, hey, I got a ladder for you, so.
So I
all
have
of
a
them.
question. Some of these are in residential areas, and it says that you have a camera feed on it. So how do those operate? When will they be on? When will they not be on?
It's an optional camera at that point, so if it was not necessary for a camera to be on there in the residential area, then there wouldn't be one on there. But the idea is that the camera would be controlled by the town, and at any time the camera would be able to be functional.
So in other words, so how do we weigh that with people's privacy?
That's a great question, and there actually is technology for that. And Brian, I don't know if you want to
Yeah,
speak to
I
that.
can add to that. So if you've ever looked at the alert wildfire cameras, any of those that cover any sort of residential area, it has a permanent masking that covers up any of the private property.
Right.
And so wherever currently we haven't decided to install cameras anywhere in particular. It's right now an option that we're looking into and going to talk with law enforcement and the fire department on what would be most beneficial if we went that route. But if it did cross over any property or private property, it would have the permanent masking. Actually puts like a green, like on the alert wildfire cameras, there's a green box, so you can't see what's in that spot.
Because it looks at some of these are, I don't know how you not see a residence, just the way some of these are located. And again, it's hard to see where the roads are, but.
Yeah, I could send you an example of what I'm referring to as well, so you can see that, because it's, you're looking at the horizon and the roadway. The private properties would be masked out, so you can see the roadway, but not the private properties.
And depending on the location, like Kevin was saying, there are some that, depending on the area, there may not be a camera on there at all, because it just doesn't make sense. These are really primarily for traffic in an emergency, so we can see what traffic is doing to understand where we need to reroute evacuation traffic. So that's the intent of it. So if there is a location that just doesn't serve that purpose, we wouldn't have a camera there.
That's what I was gonna point. I can see where a camera would be advantageous on evacuation routes. If you got congestion, you can direct people
Yes.
another way. But to Rose's point, you got to mask out. I don't, I might be out in my backyard sunbathing, and I don't want you to see that.
Oh, boy.
Just
We're
thought
gonna
I'd
leave
share
that
that
there.
visual with the community.
Now I gotta sleep tonight with that vision.
This took a turn.
Any questions for Colette?
Please, no.
Good job.
Thank you.
Dina, any cards?
I have no cards on this item.
Play music
How-
to the thing? That'd be cool.
I'd like to move approval.
I'll second it.
Go ahead.
This was such a difficult thing to get through, even though it was our highest priority. It's been almost 4 years. And convincing the feds to fund this was a huge lift. And I think it's fabulous. It may not be perfect, but it certainly is eons better than anything we've ever had before. So thank you, Colette, and everybody else who worked on it, and I move approval.
I'm talking to my son the other day, and he has one going off in his neighborhood, and it was a tornado. And so, I mean, they're good. When they're done right, they're good.
I grew up in a little village in San Lorenzo, in the Bay Area, and we had one back in the 50s and 60s and on the fire station. But it was for air raid warning,
Right.
for when the Russians came over the bombs.
So I have a motion by Jones, seconded by Tryon. Roll call vote, Vice Mayor Boland.
Aye.
Councilmember Culleton.
Aye.
Councilmember Jones.
Aye.
Councilmember Tryon.
Aye.
And Mayor Crowder.
Aye.
Motion passes.
So, item 6D, a resolution of the Town Council of the Town of Paradise approving the plans and specifications for CDBG Skyway Sidewalk infill. Mark.
All right, good evening again, council. Thank you so much for your time. We're excited to present this project, again, the CDBG Sidewalk infill project along Skyway between Neal Road and Pearson Road, as well as Center Street to Billy Road. The primary scope of this project is to construct sidewalks where they do not currently exist, to improve accessibility to important community destinations, local grocery stores, affordable housing, downtown commerce, town hall even, to again provide ADA accessible sidewalks for those that need it in our public right-of-ways. This project evolved from funding available through the Housing Department and their CDBG annual allocations that have accumulated over time. And this project is an eligible expense for those funds, but it does require only projects or sidewalk projects be constructed for new sidewalks only, not necessarily for retrofitting of non-compliant sidewalks. So again, this is going to be areas where we're working behind the curb. We are working and filling in areas that are currently dirt, essentially. So I also do have, I'll share my screen, some help that we've received from the Rebuild Paradise Foundation, which you should be able to see my screen. This is the project area, again, from Neal Road up to Pearson, and then I'm kind of going, ooh, sorry, a little bit bigger, Center Street up to Billy Road. But again, I want to send a special thank you to the Rebuild Paradise Foundation and their team there for doing incredible work in so many different creative and efficient avenues for the town. They were able to fly our project areas with their drone capabilities and collect imagery that we were able to use as a tile and ortho mosaic in order to design our project. So this is Skyway near Oakwood, and it's just really amazing. You can't get this type of resolution here on Google Earth. We can zoom in, you can see they're having a safety meeting on this day here at Oakwood and Skyway. But what we were able to do is take those project areas and scale the ortho mosaic that was collected by the drone and create quantities and exhibits that were going to help us bid this project efficiently with in-house staff. So that work is wrapped up, and we are getting prepared to bid the project. And with this step of approving the plans and specifications, we anticipate issuing the notice to bidder shortly with a potential contract for award in September. Our budget for this project is $900,000, and that's $600,000 from CDBG housing funds and $300,000 from our local transportation funds that are allocated from BCAG, Butte County Association of Governments. So with that, if we were to award construction in September, we could see this job easily be a late fall, winter job with the concrete work off the side to Skyway. I could see this taking a few months. It's about 18,000 square feet of sidewalk to put in. So with that, I will answer any questions that you might have about the project.
You're not concerned about the Skyway being paved over and then this work being done over the top of that?
Yeah, no, this work will be off to the shoulder. Obviously, we'll see some temporary traffic controls and lane closures. Again, if we could sequence everything perfect, we'd like to have this done in advance of the paving, but because the construction work for the sidewalks are not going to require any excavations or any impacts to the roads, we're recommending to go ahead and move forward and not delay the paving project.
The good part is it's in the cool part of the year, what sounds like, so won't be tearing it up, so, good, thank you.
Yeah.
And on the infill sidewalks, there's going to be the holes for the parade of flags put back, correct?
Yes, that is correct. I actually have that standard detail that we flagged today. That was a good pun. That we flagged today to be included in the project specs. And so I could say that's in there, and we're going to go back through and make sure it's about 14 and a half feet per flagpole. And we'll go ahead and make sure that those are retrofitted for areas where there was recent sidewalk repairs done through PG&E undergrounding work, and to make sure that with this project it's all compatible and ready to go for the next event.
Great, thank you.
Yeah.
Any other questions for Mark? Cards, Dina?
I have no cards on this item.
I move approval.
Second?
Motion by Bolin, seconded by Tryon to adopt resolution number 2022-53. Roll call vote, Vice Mayor Bolin?
Aye.
Councilmember Culleton?
Aye.
Councilmember Jones?
Aye.
Councilmember Tryon?
Aye.
And Mayor Crowder.
Aye.
Motion passes.
And this ADA, I'll bring this all up to ADA and everything too, right, Mark?
Yes, so the new sidewalk that we construct through the project will be ADA compliant.
Very good, thank you. You probably said that, but I didn't hear it.
All good.
Okay, 6E, resolution, the town Paradise awarding contract number 8408.con, off-system culvert repair project. Mark?
Yes, thank you again, council. This item before you is to recommend an award of a contract to finally repair our off-system culverts. And so when I say off-system, that's a category of roads and a category of funding that channels us through FEMA to repair these culverts that we determined that were not emergencies to be repaired during the emergency evacuation, but projects and project areas that needed to be designed and replaced through the kind of more traditional repair process. So that's why here we are in July of 2022, awarding a contract for the repair of numerous
Melted culvert pipes as a result of the fire. These are kind of on either easements or our non-arterial roads. Not our critical roads. We've had a separate contract that's actually wrapping up construction for those roads, but this project process lagged a little bit behind. So on June 14th, Paradise Town Council adopted a resolution approving the plans and specifications for this project and directed the town staff to advertise for bids. On June 16th, I'm sorry, there is a mistake on my prior date. As far as the advertisement date. But on June 16th, 5 bids were received by the town of Paradise and the town clerk, and they were publicly opened. Those bid results are in your agenda packet. Per the contract specifications, if it to be awarded, it's to be the lowest responsive and responsible bidder based upon the base bid and any additive bids that we choose, who complies with all of the requirements prescribed. Following the review of the low bidder's proposal, North State Earth and Water, it was staff's recommendation to reject the low bidder and award the second lowest responsive bidder, Allen Gill Construction Incorporated, in the amount of their base bid of $478,901 even. The apparent low bidder, North State Earth and Water Incorporated, submitted a proposal with various deficiencies resulting in a non-responsive bid. Most critically, they had a failure to sign and submit a bid signature page, which is the key, most critical item in the bid package itself, is binding to the contract and the bid being submitted. Failure to sign and submit addendum 1, which was also required. And unfortunately, due to clerical error that has since been resolved, their contractor's license was under suspension at the time of the bid. Following the notification of the notice of intent to award to the second lowest bidder, Allen Gill Construction, North State Earth and Water submitted a request for reconsideration on June 23rd, 2022, and that's including attachment A. Specifically, they requested the bid fall under consideration and be deemed responsive, but after review of the letter, staff continues to recommend award to the second lowest bidder, Allen Gill Construction. In my experience in awarding contracts, the bid signature page is considered a fatal flaw, especially with this type of funding. With the federal requirements, we certainly do not want to expose ourselves to any sort of risk with awarding a contract that doesn't meet the requirements that are placed upon the town. So with that, moving forward, our financial impact for the project is using FEMA public assistance funds. We have a total estimated construction and construction engineering cost of the project of $578,000. That again would be paid through that FEMA public assistance with local match requirements. The remaining information is in the agenda packet. I'd be glad to answer any questions as we move forward. Thank you so much.
Questions for Mark? Cards, Dina?
I do have one card on this item from Georgette Fitzgerald.
Hi, I am Georgetta Fitzgerald from North State Earth and Water. So I just wanted to ask for your consideration today because it is in the bid package that it is the final discretion of the town council whether to award it or not. We were the lowest bidder. The page that we were missing was a bid signature page. However, the very first page is also a bid signature page. It was signed. The addenda was related to prevailing wage. Prevailing wage was identified on the page that we signed. And the third one was our workman's comp. Our insurance company forgot to upload it to the CSLB and they flagged us, but we had the letter that shows we were actually covered and we're not inactive. We were active bidder. So we did also meet, other than our signature page, the requirements. We had a solid number. It had taken into account the prevailing wage and the items that were needed for a valid bid. We had met the DBE disadvantaged business goal of 6%, and we did provide a bid bond for the job. So it was a clerical error, and I thank you for your time.
So I'd kind of like to get our attorney's input on this, please.
Yeah, happy to do that. I will be very candid with the council. If the only issue was the last one related to the clerical error on the workers' comp insurance, the staff would have recommended that you waive that issue and still award to this company. It's not related to that last issue. It is related to the signature page. The case law on this one is pretty clear. And it's not even, and I'll use maybe non-lawyer terms, and it's not even close. Here's from case law, Menifee versus County of Fresno says that a bid must conform to the material terms of the bid package. And the responsiveness is determined from the face of the bid itself. And we actually considered their request for reconsideration about the first page being signed. The problem is, if a bidder could withdraw their bid and not be subject to any claims against their bid bond, then necessarily that is a fatal flaw. The problem is that the page that wasn't signed was the very bid bond page that says, here's our bond, here's the amount of the bond that's submitted with our bid package. And I can tell you, it is basic contract law. A contract cannot be enforced against a party that does not sign the contract. If we were to try and move against their bond, the bonding company would say, show me the signature on page 19. It wasn't submitted timely. I'll also tell you, should you accept this bid, had staff said, well, we'll go ahead and waive that, you would have gotten a valid bid protest from the second bidder. The document that was submitted, again, was not a bid protest because they're not protesting some deficiency in who you claim to be giving the bid to, which is what is a proper bid protest. This one was a request for a waiver, and I am very sympathetic, but the law is very clear. And it doesn't give any, unfortunately, it doesn't give any wiggle room to waive that. If there was some, if it were some other page that were missing or an initial where something needed to be initialed, you might be able to say, okay, sure, that page simply wasn't included. It wasn't there when the deadline hit. And that makes it a fatal flaw, unfortunately.
Thank you for your time.
Any questions, comments? Okay.
No, those are tough things, and it's a very tough one, but, I mean, you're stepping into it with other, like you said, the other bidder, if you do something, so. Are we ready to make a motion? I move we accept the resolution number
54.
2022-54.
Second.
Motion by Bolin, seconded by Culleton. Roll call vote, Vice Mayor Bolin.
Aye.
Councilmember Culleton.
Aye.
Councilmember Jones.
Aye.
Councilmember Tryon.
Aye.
And Mayor Crowder.
Aye.
Motion passes.
6F, regarding mandatory municipal recycling material and organic waste. Kevin?
We're back again with your favorite amendment to we're looking to amend the municipal code 808 for solid waste collection that adds the new Article 1 that covers the solid waste and organics associated with the new legislative law that has come into effect. This was presented last month, and so it's back on the agenda for the second reading. And so what we're looking for is a motion to approve the amendment to PMC 808. And just a reminder is we have got an extension on these requirements. Part of that extension is to show that we're moving towards compliance. This is the first step towards compliance. And we understand that the compliance is very difficult. But the state also is the one that is granting those extensions for those compliance. So moving forward with this step is showing the step towards that moving towards compliance.
Difficult means it's hard to do. This is impossible. There's no way of doing it.
At this point in time, you are correct.
So it's not difficult, it's impossible. They're asking us to okay something that's impossible
We're
at this point in time.
At this point in time, you're correct. And so we're trying to move towards compliance through hopefully other means that might come available to become into compliance. Those are going to take additional resources outside of our control.
So, again, I understand this when you're in a city and you have a lot of food vendors and you have all this, and you don't have bears and animals that take your trash and take it all over the road. I know I'm not, it's
totally
just
understand.
absolutely ridiculous.
Yeah, and so again, this is a statewide mandate. So we are working with our partners in other jurisdictions to get relief from this. But at this point in time, there has not been any legislation that has given us the relief.
So here's my concern, and maybe we can talk about it from a legal standpoint, and I agree with Councilman Bolin. That's all the arguments I brought up last time. This is totally meant for large cities who can have the access to actually repurpose the food in a sense. We're not that. So you're basically asking us to approve something that we know we can't do. So legally, as a council, I'm really uncomfortable with that because we can't do this. So we're going to sign off on this tonight knowing full well that we can't do it. And we still do not have our contract down. And I know this isn't you personally, so it's not personal whatsoever. But we still don't have our contract completed with our waste management services. So that's like a whole other issue that we have here. And so I would just like to get some legal input on approving something that we know we can't do.
There is a way you could do it. It's just very expensive. There is facilities out there that are doing organic recycling. They're just a long ways away. And so there is that possibility of coming in compliance. Is it feasible? I don't believe it is at this point in time.
Unless we do our own organic composting here in the town, and then we go back to raccoons and bears and who's gonna do it and what land are we gonna use and the drainage, and so.
I completely understand your frustration.
So, counsel for the council?
You will be, I know, shocked to hear that this has been an active subject on the city attorney listserv. There is an email, there's a website that we all have, it's like a bulletin, electronic bulletin board that all of the city attorneys have access to. And this has been an active, there are a few items that are actively being discussed all the time. This is one of them. Unfortunately, there are no answers right now. No one has a silver bullet to say, here's what we did to comply, and it was cost-effective and easy to implement and wonderful. Quite frankly, I'd take any one of the three. But there isn't an answer other than if you refuse to comply, the state will likely try and make some example out of you. If you say, well, we'll try and comply, we'll pass the ordinance and we'll do our best to comply, there is a lot of discretion that you have. For example, beginning January 1 of 2024, you must take progressive enforcement. Well, you have a lot of discretion in what that progressive enforcement is. Now, I don't want to give, any ideas to anybody, but, I think you have the ability to be very flexible with your progressive enforcement.
So who's the compost police?
Yeah, right now, I think it's bounced around between I'm not sure which state agency it is that.
Cal Recycle.
Is it Cal Recycle?
Yeah. Yes.
I think Cal Recycle is going to be very candid, I think they're going to be focusing on jurisdictions that can do it and aren't doing it. And I think they're not going to worry about the smaller jurisdictions where it is a literal impossibility to fully comply with this. I think they're going to be looking at the large jurisdictions, and why they made this a one-size-fits-all, I have no idea. But, rather than targeting it to the larger urban areas. I don't know. I'm not sure.
So if we got to do it to buy time and hopefully all the city attorneys and all the other jurisdictions like us can bring pressure on somebody to get it fixed. Can we not, once again, add something? It's the second reading, so, how do we adopt this under protest? How do we make that part of it? Can we add that sentence to it?
Well, I think, look, here's what I would suggest, and this is not a perfect solution, but I think your comment about passing this under protest is noted. I think the minutes can note that. I think you can also give direction to myself and to the town manager to work with Cal Cities to form a consortium of small jurisdictions who can't comply with this, to seek some relief from the state. I know it hasn't been forthcoming so far. Another one of the problems, I'll tell you, there are a lot of, I'll say us, smaller jurisdiction attorneys who are saying to some of the bigger ones who don't want to comply, go ahead, sue the state. Take them on. Go ahead.
Right.
So, I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, you're.
No.
Okay. So when's our drop dead date to have to vote on this ordinance?
I think it has passed, actually.
Hasn't? Because
I-
I didn't think it was for like another, towards the end of the year, like towards November.
And I believe it was August. And
Oh, it
where,
was last August, not this coming
Yeah,
August.
I think so.
Okay.
and there,
So if I'm NRWS or if I'm someone else that wants to do the garbage up here, I would have to take an account, when I price out, I gotta take an account this right here, because I gotta have a truck solely dedicated to composting.
it's either, you're allowed to combine composting with green waste. The issue with our routes and how they're set up currently is green waste gets picked up every other week. Compost needs to be picked up every week. So there would be an additional route that would be added to that to pick up that.
So I'm already adding to the cost of our new contract this additional, because they've got to configure that. They got to calculate that in, or else they're going to be caught.
Correct.
Yep.
I was hoping I wasn't.
And that's kind of one of the reasons why it would be nice to postpone this until, because our green waste meeting was canceled for today. So it would be nice to postpone this to.
That's not going to change.
So what would be the consequences if we waited until after our meeting with,
Let me chime in on that, okay. The renegotiation of the current contract with NRWS is going to take some time for them to reconfigure the rate structure based on the new population of Paradise, based on these new requirements and all that. It's going to take some time, you know. I thought Kevin's point was really valid. We already got a pass for a couple of years. So we just have to change our ordinance relating to public, to put in the language the state wants. We got till 2024 to figure some things out. In the meantime, there's going to be a whole lot of activity in trying to get some relief or change it, or at least put some different triggers into this law, this onerous thing they passed. But it's going to take some time to renegotiate, more time than we probably have if we postpone this. Now, I'm not an advocate of this by any means, but it's pretty simple. You know, we're kind of forced to do it. I don't see any real quick advantage in waiting until we have some meetings. We're going to have a meeting in August. It's going to take a while to get new rate structures, to redevelop or to renegotiate the franchise agreement.
Even if we don't adopt it, if I'm NRWS or whoever, I got to know that's out there and I've got to calculate it in. I got to know that's state law.
Right.
And I've got to put it in my bid to do this job.
Right.
So it really doesn't matter if we adopt it or not. They're going to calculate that anyway.
Absolutely, and just for everybody's information, I mean, there's no place in Butte County, in our local area, that does any of this. There's no composting facilities, there's no place the state said, well, you gotta take it here. Because by this, it has to go to a certified specific place. One of the advantages we have with our contract with NRWS is they are affiliated with Napa Recycling and some of the partners of the conglomerate that owns all that stuff. And they do this. They do this in Napa. They have composting facilities. So even though they have to calculate that in the new franchise agreement going forward, they're probably one of the best people we could be working with, because because of what they own and are affiliated with, it's going to be the least amount of an impact to our citizens in the long run. And that's all I'm going to say on that.
I will say this, from a legal standpoint, and only from a legal standpoint, you are much better off having an ordinance and not complying with it than not having an ordinance at all.
That's fine.
And the reason why is, again, from an enforcement standpoint, if you have an ordinance, the state doesn't have to prove anything other than, here is your stack of ordinances, and there isn't one in there that we required related to this, so therefore, they're done. Their case is now proved. With this, you have an ordinance. Then they have to get down in the granular level to show, are you complying with the ordinance or not? And that's a much more difficult position for them to be in, for Cal Recycle to come up here and to gather that evidence. And so I would suggest, even if you cannot comply physically, you just don't have, the facilities are not here, you're better off passing the ordinance and standing and falling back on, we cannot comply, rather than, well, because we cannot comply, we're not passing your stupid ordinance.
And Steve,
By the way, that's a
Scott,
technical legal term.
Scott, I totally get what you're saying, but that's part of our problem in our country today, is we have politicians that are deciding what to ignore and what to push and make happen. And that's not right. I mean, if you have something that should either be done or get rid of it. And I agree with you. I'm not disagreeing with you, and I know you're not disagreeing with me. That's the mess we're in right now.
Yep. My advice is strictly legal, not policy. It's not policy related.
If we follow your advice, and if we adopt this tonight, because we're forced to, even without putting my little language in there other than the minutes, we just need to encourage every citizen that lives in the town of Paradise to write to Cal Recycle, write to your congressman, write to your assemblyman, and complain about these irresponsible regulations that they're, I mean, let's get together as a community. It can't just be us making our voice, but all of you that are out there that live here, tell them how stupid, how stupid this is.
But then
and how we can't do it.
it also puts us in a position of, we're passing an ordinance that we're not going to comply with. So then does that now mean that we're going to pick and choose what ordinances we enforce?
It doesn't say that.
Welcome to our world today.
I think one other thing just to mention is by showing that we're moving forward in some way in compliance, I have a feeling at the end of our extension, we're going to be asking for another one. And so this shows that at least we made that first motion to get that additional extension on the other side.
I doubt they'll have a state-authorized recycling facility, or composting facility within our region by 2024. So to Kevin's point, it's going to be one extension after another. And hopefully, there can be some pressure brought on the assembly, on the government, in the state level.
Maybe there's a good one in Sacramento we can dump it.
See, that's just it. They don't, it's not up to them to have a recycle facility. It's up to all of us as a region to do
No,
this.
it's not what it says. So if you read the law, it says something different. It says it has to go to a state-approved certified thing. And whether, no matter who owns it, that's what it says. So they got to certify it. So nobody's going to build it. There's no money in it. And plus, the water board and other state agencies are shutting down anybody that's doing it.
I'm just saying that they, as the state, are not going to do it for us.
I'm going to vote for it. I'll make a motion.
No, hang on. Dina, card.
I have one card from Ward Habriel.
Make me wait till the whole end here. I assume none of you have read all of the language and even the detail that's between pages 500 and 547 in the attachments is pretty lengthy. The bottom line with SB 1383, when they got done talking to your leaders, was to say, how will you communicate to your residents how they will comply? How do you do that? And there's no good way to do that because it's going to be interpreted differently for everybody unless you create several thousand words that's going to confuse a lot of people. But even some of the language that exists now, recyclable material, this is the way it's written there, means material which otherwise would become or be treated as municipal solid waste, but which by means of a process of collecting, sorting, material recovery facility, cleansing, treating, and reconstructing may be returned to the economic mainstream in the form of a finished resource or a material for new, reused, or reconstructed products which may be used in the marketplace. In other words, they think there's a way that you can make money on this and not lose money. That ain't true. That can't happen in any of the communities where they're already doing something like this. And of the collection of materials, and I'm quoting right from 8.08.060, all collection, transporting, recycling, composting, and disposal of municipal solid waste or recycles and organic waste done in accordance with the Town of Paradise General Plan should be detailed in the franchise agreement. Well, are we going to try this with NRWS? The language will overwhelm them. They're ordinary folks. We have to have them help us comply. And the way this reads now, it's just not going to happen that well. And in .08.080, the ownership of the municipal solid waste becomes the hauler's responsibility once you put it in the can and the can in the street. So when we say that to our public, that's just, I can put all the crap I want to in there. As soon as I get it in the street, it's not my problem. That's not how we educate the people in the town of Paradise that we would like to comply, even though it's not going to be easy to do. And it does allow for a generator to do their own recycling through some other program. We don't have any other programs. And the test case right now, the one that's supported by the county grant, it's not in the town of Paradise. It's 100 feet outside of the town. It's on county property. And it does not comply with any of the state requirements for self or home composting, which usually requires in a closed system. When it's open for rats and other vermin, that ain't a good idea. Well, they have a lot of cats and dogs on their property, so they're not worried about that. So they use it for demonstration purposes. They do collect food waste unsaleable from Grocery Outlet and a few other stores. They grind it up into little pieces. They put it into piles that are not closed. They're open. So when they're gone, most of the week, they're there on Saturdays doing demonstrations, the cats and the dogs are chasing away the vermin. They hope. But the end product then of that composted material, what is the value of that? How does somebody determine, yes, it does have enough value to justify doing this as a program and then selling it back to somebody so that you get the benefit as described in their language? It just doesn't happen that easy. And as a certified master composter, I know it's not easy. And to get people to listen to all the lessons, read all the brochures, practice on their own, most of them give up after a while. They say, I'll go to the nursery and buy the stuff. Thank you for your time.
Thanks, Ward.
If you want to pass this, vote like this: 3 in favor, 2 against. Don't make it unanimous.
That sounds familiar.
Well,
I'm just saying.
That's what we did last meeting.
So, who wants to start with this wonderful ordinance?
I'll make a motion to accept this, do this thing.
Somebody needs a second.
Actually, we don't. It fails if you don't second.
Put it to a vote.
I'll second.
Good.
Motion by Culleton, seconded by Crowder to adopt, to waive the second reading of Town Ordinance Number 619 and read by title only, and adopt Town Ordinance Number 619, an ordinance of the Town Council of the Town of Paradise, amending text regulations within Paradise Municipal Code, Chapter 8.08, and adding Article 1 regarding mandatory municipal MSW recyclable material and organic waste disposal reduction consistent with new state law requirements. Roll call vote. Vice Mayor Boland.
My goodness. I'll say aye because I said it last time.
Councilmember Culleton.
Aye, following the attorney's suggestion.
Councilmember Jones.
No, I think this is really, really stupid. We often do what the state wants us to in order to get the goodies they're trying to give us, but in this case, this makes no sense to me, and I think it's going to cost Paradise a lot of money, so no.
Councilmember Tryon.
Same reason, no.
And Mayor Crowder.
And because of what the state could withhold grants from us and everything else, I think it's in our best interest. I don't like it. I don't think it's right, but yes.
The ordinance passes 3-2.
For all the wrong reasons. We passed it. And that is not the way to do it.
So, item 7A, council-initiated items. Discuss an amendment to Paradise Municipal Code to extend the length of time residents are allowed to have goats. Greg?
I am not a goat person, so this is not my expertise. My thoughts are that we have a weed problem, and it's a weed problem that's not going to go away anytime soon. I've had enough notices on my properties. I'm done getting notices. It's crazy. But what I was hoping for, and I know Tony's going to clarify some stuff which I didn't know about, and I appreciate you coming and doing that. My thought was this: if people, right now, my understanding was, we'll hear differently, you can only have them for 60 days, a herd. I guess that's not true if you get a use permit of some sort. But my thought was, what if we had 2 goats? Every property can have 2 goats if they wanted them. I mean, they're not something that, they'll eat you out of house and home if you don't have a good place for them. So they're not a good pet. They're not like a dog or something like that. They will mess you up. And then every quarter acre over that, you could add another goat. In other words, enough goats to take care of your property and do what you need to do. Maybe that's an idea. I'm not set on this. I'm just thinking at least it gives people a way to have weeds taken care of naturally and not having to weed eat and frankly, mow it at times when it shouldn't be mowed. And my thoughts too is a lot of the outskirts, and I'm going to be living on one too, where it's very difficult on some of the hillsides to get some of those weeds and stuff. So anyway, I'm just open to ideas. I thought I'd throw it out there. So
And I don't have a problem on a temporary basis, but I went on the internet today, and because I don't know anything about having goats, and there was a clip of what having goats can be, and I watched it, and they literally can scream like a person, and I guess they tend to be very noisy and vocal. There's different species, there's milk, there's meat, there's all of this. I don't
know about screaming ones, I haven't heard.
Well, on a residential lot, it would not be something that I'd want.
No, it's same as not having a rooster. I mean, I get it, totally get it.
On a larger acreage, which normally isn't right, in the midst of the residential areas.
Most people on small parcels are not going to want one. I mean, it doesn't make sense. It's going to be larger parcels where they have more room, more area that needs to be taken care of, because they'll eat everything in your backyard. I mean, they'll destroy. The little I do know, I know that part. So, and I don't think they should be on properties that aren't inhabited either. I don't think we should just park a bunch of them on a piece of property and have them there all the time, for a period of time to mow it down. Yeah, I get it. It's great. But to just have a piece of property and say, well, I'm going to put 3 goats out there and they're going to take care of it and I'm just going to leave them there. That's not what I'm saying either, so.
And before I would say, yeah, let's go ahead and allow them in a residential area, I'd sure want input from our public, because I for one, just after watching this little video, there's no way that I would want to live next door to.
I saw a bunch of videos, didn't see that one, man.
Well, that's the first thing I saw, so.
Well, you must have a weird place. Anyway, okay.
So I have a comment. First off, I'd just like to say, Councilman Boland, welcome to the right side.
Oh, I don't know about that, but thanks.
So, a couple things. Is that, for the most part, goats are quieter than dogs. There are certain breeds of goats that are more vocal, especially around dinner time. That's when you're going to hear them the most. Although some people find the sound of goats quite soothing, and they do yoga with them and everything else. Not my thing personally. So I think that it would solve a lot of our problems with, our concerns about running weed eaters and things like that, and causing fires and causing sparks, especially on steeper properties. They're very helpful. They are very much indiscriminate eaters. So if you have anything that you don't want them to eat, you're going to have to, get some stock fencing and put it around it. But the one concern that I would have, if you just put 2 goats together, then, and it's a property that's close to the ridge, you run a risk of a mountain lion coming up and getting those goats.
Oh, sure.
So,
Yeah.
that is another consideration
Yes.
on behalf of the goats that we would have to think about. But I do think that there is an opportunity for us, especially with so many lots here right now. It is expensive for people. I know myself, I've paid to have my lot cleaned, then I turn around and cleaned it myself, and now I'm going through my 3rd pass of cleaning it again. It would be beneficial to be able to put goats out there and have goats clean the area, and there are people that do have goats that are available. I actually live across the street from goats, and I only usually hear them when they're getting ready to feed them, then you can kind of hear them. Or if, something freaks them out, they are actually pretty good watchdogs in that respect. So anyway, just my thoughts.
Tony, could you clarify what the existing rules are?
Sure can.
Thank you.
So for Defensible Space Ordinance, we allowed open goat grazing for up to 60 days in the calendar year. Now and that's in lieu of our animal regulations. So we have within our animal regulations long-term livestock keeping, and potentially in all residential zones. You can have goats or sheep, per the municipal code. They have some requirements. It's like 10,000 square foot per animal. The barns have to be kept 100 feet away from neighboring residences. But that really equates, and they cap it at 18 for parcels under 5 acres, right? Over 5 acres, that cap doesn't apply. It does take a minor administrative use permit to go through the process. There is a cost to that process. It's $352. But according to livestock experts, really the ideal number is 6 goats per acre. So if you want to dial that in, that equates to about 7,000 square foot per animal. But we could, we do have very much like backyard chickens and rabbits that allow 2 per parcel in any area. That's just a blanketed, you can have 2 chickens, 2 rabbits, of course no roosters in that area. So we could modify that.
So knowing that, and Tony explained this to me today, maybe administrative permit's the way to go. That way it's the neighbors get involved with the neighbors that want it, and they can discuss it with them and come up with an idea. I mean, you've already cut out many lots just having the criteria you're talking about, the distance away with a barn or the amount of square feet. There's several properties in town that wouldn't work.
Sure, you're probably looking at a half acre to get, administrative permit to allow you to have 2 goats.
Right. Yeah, at least, so. Anyway.
Well, I kind of still stand the idea, if you're going to put goats in a residential area on a half-acre lot, I'd sure like to hear public input myself before I.
Well, maybe the permit is the way they get public input, is what I'm saying. They'd have to go before, is it the planning commission?
Planning commission. Right.
Yeah.
So
To get it.
each person would have to do that, so
Could
they're.
apply and then neighbors get noticed and, have the opportunity to come to.
So if I want to put goats, first of all, I have a 3rd acre lot. Okay, so.
You're in trouble.
Yeah, so I could have a half a goat.
15.
Or something. No, but, so if a person wanted to have 2 goats on an acre lot or whatever, the recommendation is, they have to go and give you $350 and go to the planning commission and get a permit to do that?
That takes, if for keeping of livestock on a
Okay.
parcel, and then
Okay.
that permit runs with the parcel.
One of the concerns is, one of the concerns that I'm seeing happen with, it's not about so much people that are living on their lots, it's the empty lots all over town. And the commercial lots that, all over town that are overgrown. And one of the things that I ran into is somebody that comes up periodically that moved to Gridley and takes care of his lot. He had water on his lot for the first 2 years after the fire. Had a meter, had water. He'd come up and weed eat and spray Roundup and use the water to clean up his equipment and stuff, and had the water available in case a fire started. But so many properties that are vacated, or the absentee property owners, there's no water. There's no water to the property. I mean, so somehow we should, if we're concerned about fire in these overgrown lots, we maybe need to get PID to make sure there's water available on lots. I mean, they're charging people money to have the meter, to have the, you know, there's just a bigger issue than just allowing people to have goats on their property so they don't have to mow the lawn or hire somebody to weed eat, you know. I think that's our real dilemma here.
So I have a quick question. Right now, if somebody, say, has a vacant lot and they want to clean it up, and they want to do that by putting a couple goats there, which actually makes sense because if a goat eats the vegetation, then it's less likely to seed into other people's. Because what I'm finding now is the people that aren't taking care of their lots, the seeds from their weeds and thistles and things like that are now blowing into other lots. And so now those people are having more problem with their lots. And especially if you have a really nice landscaped area and you have like weeds or I'm sorry, gravel or mulch put down, those seeds can go into that gravel or mulch and still grow. So if somebody just wants to put a couple of goats and like say it's only for a couple weeks or something like that, where does the town lie on that?
You can. So you have up to 60 days in a whole calendar year.
Right.
So
Okay.
you can openly graze goats for that amount of time.
Okay.
You know, you could do it, and you could break that up, 15 days, you know, throughout the year, and run. There's actually a goat operation right off of Academy happening right now.
Okay.
To take a
So
look.
we currently allow for that?
Yeah, we currently
Okay.
allow it.
So that doesn't take a permit, that's part of the weed abatement?
Correct. Under weed abatement ordinance.
So I can hire the guy with his goats to come on my vacant acre lot?
Correct,
For 2 weeks.
and that doesn't violate our animal keeping livestock, that you're keeping them there, you know, all year.
So I'm, you know, as far as I am, I'm good with the way it is right now, not knowing this before, and I don't think many people did know what you're talking about right now. At least the people I talked to.
So-
I think we're good with where we're at and going forward with it, and just get the word out that this is a possibility, this is what you can do. My frustration is what was already been said. Looked like we were kind of through the rains, weedy, get everything ready. We got a big rain. Get everything done, because it looked like we're done with the rains and everything looks great. And here comes another storm. I'm going, oh my goodness, the third time on these properties to go through and getting notices twice on a couple of them, you know, that you didn't do anything. Well, I did do something. What do you mean I didn't do nothing? I know they didn't say that. They didn't say that. I'm reading between the lines on it. And it's frustrating. It is frustrating. And I'm just trying to help. What are some alternatives? And that's all I was after with this, so.
So maybe we ought to encourage the people that are harvesting dirt and selling it to like get a herd of goats again and start cleaning up some of these vacant lots.
Okay, so no action necessary to bring back?
No,
Okay,
personally, I think we learned a lot tonight, and I did anyway, and I think we know see how it works.
Thank you, Tony.
Thank you.
Perfect. Thank you.
Go, man.
Council reports on committee representation. Greg?
Sorry, I can't think of anything. LAFCO was canceled this month, so I can't think of anything that's important that you need to hear, so I'm good.
Jody?
I went to the county oversight board meeting. We had an action item for Gridley.
Woody?
I went to the ribbon cutting for the first house in America designated fire safe by the IBHS group. And I thought that was pretty cool, and we've adopted that new ordinance. And so as a result of that, other than my 5 gardenias that are underneath my front window, I had them come over and inspect my house, and I have a second official inspection tomorrow morning at 9 o'clock. And I think my house is going to get that designation, unless they make me cut down the laurels over by the side fence. And then my wife says that's a no-go.
I can do it for you.
That's it.
Rose?
I went to the same ribbon cutting. I went to BCAG for Jody, and also attended the Butte County Air Quality Management meeting. That's it.
I think we were all at that ribbon cutting, and it really was something great to see. We also had quite a few general unit labor negotiations, which Greg was part of as well. Those are all behind us, they're all done, and that's great, and we appreciate that. And I think that's, there were several other meetings, and other than that, that's mine, so we'll move on. Any future agenda items? Okay, hearing none. Item 8A, Town Manager Report.
Yep, and I'll make it quick. The staff has been working really, really hard on bringing funds into the town, and I think this month is going to kind of show the fruits of all that labor. One thing is with the CDBG DR, and we've just talked about this, is that HCD actually earmarked a $30 million portion of that for the Paradise Sewer Project. And Mark has worked tirelessly on trying to get that item in there. And the biggest part on that is that it was not taken out of the infrastructure dollars. It was taken out of another planning section. So the infrastructure dollars of the $317 million still is the $317 million, even with that $30 million that has been earmarked for the Paradise Sewer Project. So we just want to thank HCD and all of their staff for making that a priority of getting that accomplished. Also working tirelessly on getting that EIR out and making sure that we're moving this forward. So this $30 million is going to springboard us into that design and engineering, and maybe even into a design build type of construction project. The other item is that we're looking at a sizable sum of economic development dollars that are going to be coming into, hopefully into Paradise. That we're looking to kind of build a facility for workforce training in Paradise. So again, really hoping that comes to fruition, and looking for a sizable chunk of that. We're hoping to have a announcement later this week on the infrastructure dollars. Again, we're looking for a nice sized chunk of dollars coming in, and hopefully we'll be getting that announcement out to the council here at the end of this week and to the public. And then we just sent out a press release today thanking all of the people that helped receive the $9.3 million from the state budget for the gas tax backfill. And so we just want to thank all of the partners with Assemblyman Gallagher's office, Senator Nielsen's office, the governor's office, all of that. The governor's office actually helped. We're going to thank them all. And really just want to thank our lobbyists, Broadgustman. They did a lot of work behind the scenes on that. Cal Cities did a lot of work behind the scenes also to help with that. So just a real team effort. And then we as staff had an EOC exercise late last month, just to really prepare for this upcoming wildfire season. And we're going to continue that. Jim Brashear is our EOC kind of trainer, and he is now going section by section and really making sure everybody's dialed in The nice part about this last EOC exercise is we had a lot of new faces in the room. So, the new faces are learning from the old faces and really kind of getting dialed in, because we always know that these emergencies don't happen when everybody's here and on site, or obviously somebody's going to be on vacation. So people being able to step into those roles and really support the EOC was a really good exercise, and I thought it was a good way to test a lot of things too. So we tested our new phone system and our new phone bank, and we learned a few things from there, and just kind of the stuff that moved forward. One thing that I will say is that obviously our zone numbers are staying the same, but the county's zones have all changed. And sometimes they might not even make sense, where you have a 461 next to a 463. And so they're not all in sequential order at that border of the town. So knowing where those zones are and what they border up against was a good exercise for us to know, is that, that an order in 461 means, maybe it's in zone 7, or where those zones lay, so that we're all kind of familiar with those, because those are fairly new, and they all don't make sequential order all the way around the town. So kind of really good exercise on that. And then we've had a solid waste committee meeting, and that's been, I think, fruitful. And I think we have some good stuff moving forward. Hopefully we'll have something to council here into the future about the green waste opening up, and a lot of those other things moving forward with NRWS. So I feel like it was a good exercise. And lastly, the mayor and I, we had a meeting with Adventist Health today, and we're hoping that this is opening up those lines of communication, so that we're all working together for the same goal, which is to get hospital care back, emergency room opened here, and that we're kind of pulling back that veil of unknown of where they are and where we are, and so that we're all working for that same goal. So we have some positive thoughts, hopefully, after that meeting, and that communication will continue to stay open and transparent. So with that, I'll answer any questions.
Questions for Kevin?
Thank you.
Okay. So with that, we will close this council meeting.
Can we take a break?
You want a 5-minute break?
Yeah, let's just take a 5-minute break.
We'll take a 5-minute break, and then we'll come back and open the meeting for the successor agency.
Thanks for finishing before 11. Yeah, before 11. I don't like sitting here till 11.
Tony.
So, Mr. Stark, I got a question.
Hey, man, give me a call or something. Just go in. I have a copy. If we have to do some kind of emergency thing, because that's not.
So, can you tell me those Aurora Ridge, well, it's not Aurora Ridge, the houses that they're building under owner-builder?
Okay.
Can you tell me how many they've done in this calendar year?
Aurora Ridge?
Yeah, well, no, well, specific.
let's finish.
This shouldn't take long.
I heard you, I heard you.
You just want me to explain why we're doing this meeting. I mean, that's like impossible.
Why we're doing the successor agency meeting? Oh my gosh, that is impossible.
What is it? I just, you have to be insane to understand this.
So 8:02, we'll call this meeting of the successor agency to order, and Dina, roll call.
Roll call, Director Bolin,
Old face here.
Director Culleton,
Yes, I am here.
Director Jones,
Here.
Director Tryon,
Present.
and Chair Crowder.
Here.
Thank you.
So, item 2, public communication. Any cards, Dina?
I have no cards on this item.
Okay. So, item 3A, approved minutes of the December 14th, 2021 regular and April 12th, 2022 special successor agency to the redevelopment agency meetings.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Tryon, seconded by Jones. Roll call vote.
Aye.
Oh.
Aye.
Culleton,
Aye.
Jones,
Aye.
Tryon,
Aye.
and Crowder.
Aye.
Thank you.
Item 4A, consider approving Resolution 2022-01, a resolution of the successor agency to the redevelopment agency, and this will be presented by Ross, and if you can be as quick as the rest of us, that's great.
Yep, oh, I will keep it brief. So just to review sort of the primary components that's included in this budget before you, we have the debt service payment on the outstanding bonds of $152,000 for this upcoming fiscal year, as well as administration costs and the cost of continuing disclosure requirements of $34,500. One important thing to note with this budget is that the debt service payments include only the first of the 2 scheduled payments for the year, without any associated revenues to cover those payments. This sort of follows the trend that we've been reviewing in closed session over this last fiscal year. But just to sort of provide a brief, again, overview of sort of how we got here. So historically, these debt service payments have been covered through an allocation of property tax revenues associated with the defined boundaries of the previous redevelopment agency. Post Camp Fire, these property tax revenues have been backfilled by the state, which was included with the state property tax backfills. However, with the last fiscal year ending June 30 of 2021, these revenues are no longer available. So as a result, the current direction provided by the successor agency board over this last fiscal year was to utilize only funding available through the bond reserve funds to make those bond payments that are coming up over this next fiscal year. These reserve funds are expected to be fully depleted through the payment of the first scheduled debt service payments in November of 2022, which is why only that first debt service payment is included in this budget. So unless other funding is made available, which is not expected at this time, there may not be sufficient funding to cover that second debt service payment coming up in May of 2023. The only other thing I'll cover briefly here is the one alternate funding source that is included in this budget before you is related to the administrative costs for expected disclosure requirements and ongoing council consultation that we're expecting to need over this next year. So that total is about $40,500. This is anticipated to be funding potentially from a transfer from the general fund to the successor agency. Again, sort of a smaller amount in the grand scheme of things, and this will come before you again before that's actually made, as it will require a formal loan from the town to the successor agency if we do decide to go that direction.
I thought we weren't going to do that. I thought when the money's gone, we're broke, that's it.
So that will be for the actual bond debt service payments. However, I think there was direction previously provided to cover at least the administrative costs, which will be required going forward. But again, this is only just a placeholder for those costs. The actual form and formal agreement between the town and successor agency will come back before you later in the year. Yes. Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, and just remember, these administrative costs are for the financial advising of the transaction that's happening and for bond counsel to make sure that we are following all the proper guidelines.
Okay. That it?
But we are voting
On the budget.
You're voting on the budget, just the budget document itself.
So the question, sorry. So we have not defaulted yet.
Technically, Ross,
Yeah, so the debt service payments have continued to be made, however, not made in the normal fashion that they are previously. We've actually made those payments as of May 2022 through a drawdown of the bond reserve funds. Bondholders are still being paid, however, it's based on the reserve funds that are established specifically really for this purpose.
and that had to be disclosed through the EMA website. So there has been a notification to the bondholders that the trust has been drawn upon. And then there also has been an S&P rating that has been, I believe, a triple C is where they're at on the
Triple
rating.
D now?
Triple C rating on that.
So-
And it was A, right?
It was not A, it was like double B.
Okay.
So they know that, the bondholders know that.
They have been
they're using this.
informed, yes.
So that kind of alerts them that like,
Yep. And it alerts the whole market.
yeah. Cool. Second.
Motion by Bolin, seconded by Culleton. Roll call vote. Vice Mayor Bolin? Director Culleton?
Aye.
Director Jones? Aye. Director Tryon?
Aye.
Director Crowder?
Aye.
Thank you.
So with that,